This is our ferry to Cumberland Island. Join us in part 1 as we learn the island's early history and explore the historic and peaceful place John F. Kennedy Jr. married Carolyn Bessette in 1996. About 150 feral horses roam the island. It is believed that these horses are descendants of the horses the Spanish brought with them in the 1500s. They survived completely on their own without human interference. This field was the cotton plantation of Robert Stafford. He established this plantation in 1830, and it consisted of over 5,000 acres by the mid-1840s. He owned approximately 150 slaves. Their descendants lived on Cumberland Island until the 1960s. Robert Stafford died in 1877, and his heirs sold the property to Thomas Carnegie and his wife Lucy, who also owned Dungeness. More about that historic home later. This is the grave of Robert Stafford. Alongside him is the grave of Thomas Hutchinson. Robert Stafford had no real personal connection to Thomas Hutchinson. The Carnegie family just buried him here because he wasn't a family member and they didn't want to bury him in the family cemetery, and the Stafford family was long gone from the island, so he was buried here. Now, Thomas Hutchinson was invited to Cumberland Island by William Coleman Carnegie to design a world-renowned golf course. Hutchinson died in 1900 after a horse riding accident. No, he didn't ride the feral horses. Lucy Carnegie kept thoroughbred horses on the property for her family and guests to ride.
Now, there's no telling where they'll pop up today. I mean, nobody knows where they go. They wanted to hear about Stafford too. Now, I really have them trained to come out at this time, so everybody knows. They don't look too bad. You see how fat they are?
They're smaller than
This is the settlement. After Robert Stafford died and his descendants sold the plantation to the Carnegies, his former slaves, most stayed on as paid employees, left the property and used their own money that Stafford had encouraged them to invest to purchase this land. They named it the settlement. This is Amanda and Primus Mitchell, once enslaved on the Stafford plantation, and 2 others. Primus was one of the 4 trustees who purchased land for the First African Baptist Church. Together they had 7 daughters who married and lived in the settlement. This is Beulah Alberti, one of the last residents of the settlement to leave. She was considered the mayor of the settlement. This is the First African Baptist Church, built in 1937 to replace the original church, which burned. It also served as the schoolhouse for the children in the settlement. You might recognize this church as the site of John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette's September 1996 wedding. The wedding was so top secret that the guests didn't know where they were going until they arrived in St. Mary's, Georgia, to take the ferry to the island.